Slavery is back.
Welcome to a place where private business profit from a captive labour force, yet pennies are spent on medical services to a population in which the Indigenous, the poor and the mentally ill are overrepresented. Where isolation, humiliation and degradation are facts of life. Welcome to prison.
It depends who's telling the story, I suppose. The prisoners would have one view, the people who work in the prison system would have another, and I think it's up to people to decide where the truth is.
Give government propaganda and the media spin doctors the flick. And check out Doin Time for news, views and tunes on prison issues from Guantanamo Bay to Christmas Island to prisons and detention centres everywhere. Every Monday at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up and we're still talking about revolution.
Hello and welcome to the Doin Time show. This is 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. This is Marisa and I'll be taking you through until 5 o'clock this evening. This episode of Doin Time contains audio images and discussion of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who have died. Overall, this special Doin Time program is a dedication and tribute to the much-loved Honourable Uncle Ray Jackson, born 27th March 1941 and who died on April 23rd, 2015. He was a Wiradjuri warrior who dedicated his life to fighting for justice and human rights for Aboriginal people and much more. We will hear from his loved ones throughout the show. First up, though, the Doin Time show brings you an interview with Julie Tongs, who will talk about culturally safe practices in prison for Aboriginal people. Julie Tongs is a Wiradjuri woman and is currently the CEO of Winnunga, Aboriginal Health and Community Services. I will check the pronunciation of those terms with her. Next, we'll bring you a tribute to Uncle Ray Jackson. First, we will interview Carolyn Jackson, daughter of Uncle Ray. She has been a much-loved part of the show since 2015 when her father passed away. Ray is missed by Carolyn and her beautiful family. Then we will hear from Joseph Pugliese, Uncle Ray's friend and long-time activist. But now we will be going to Julie Tongs. Just a quick intro. Julie will speak about prison healthcare. I invited her onto the show for a follow-up discussion after the Doin Time show aired the Zoom meeting that was organised by Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service, and it was a prison healthcare webinar on Wednesday, 29th March 2023, about the health and safety of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Victorian prisons. Winnunga provides a culturally safe environment for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the ACT and surrounding regions to access health and community services and delivers healthcare to various regional communities. For over 30 years, Julie has advocated fiercely for the expansion of holistic, community-controlled Aboriginal primary health services and organisations. And we will go now to a quick announcement and then we will welcome Julie.
Kufiyas are Palestinian scarves, and they're a symbol of support for justice for the Palestinian people. Buying one will support the last remaining factory in Hebron that makes kufiyas, and all proceeds from the sales support projects in Palestine, especially Gaza, as well as local solidarity organisations. From the traditional black and white kufiya to an array of modern designs, all scarves are $35 each. Explore the range and order online or drop by 3CR during business hours. We're your support for the rights of Palestinians. Go to kufiyas.org.au, that's KUFIYAS.org.au, a 3CR supporter.
And in case you've just tuned in, this is the Doin Time show, 3CR Community Radio, hosted by Marisa. And we're going to be speaking with Julie Tongs now. Hello, Julie. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Marisa.
It's so good. Do you like being called Auntie or not?
Yes, that's fine.
I felt like I really want to. So, Auntie Julie, can you tell us what land you're from?
I'm a Wiradjuri woman. I was born in Leeton, New South Wales, and grew up in a small country town called Whitten. And I'm living on the beautiful land of the Ngunnawal Ngambri Wiradjuri people here in Canberra.
Fantastic. Auntie Julie, it's really good to have you, and I wanted to really invite you onto the show as a follow-up with the excellent Zoom meeting that happened, the webinar with the Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service. And I know that there's been a really, really sad and tragic death of Veronica Nelson, and the Doin Time show has covered a lot of material about what happened with her. It's just dreadful, isn't it?
It's unnecessary. It shouldn't be happening, regardless. This is 2023, and we've still got mobs dying in prison from preventable diseases or being knocked around by the police or, it's just not right. It shouldn't be happening at all.
3CR. Auntie Julie, I think we've got some gremlins on the line.
I think we have.
Yeah, I'm not even. I used to live in a regional area, and I was doing the show remotely from there last year. But I'm in Melbourne at the moment, so I don't know what happened there. But we were talking about Veronica Nelson, and you were telling me we were talking about her very tragic death. Can you comment on that?
Absolutely. That should never have happened. And if she'd had the right medical, she'll be with us today, like many other Aboriginal people right across the country that have died from preventable diseases.
Auntie?
Yes.
You still?
I'm still here. I'm a stayer.
We're not getting rid of you that easy, are we? We're going to have one more go. But I'm hoping I can have you back in the next couple of weeks anyway.
Absolutely,
is that all right?
You can. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
So we were talking about Veronica Nelson. I'm wondering if you could just talk about just some of the wonderful work that the organisation has done and some of the work that you've done in regards to healthcare in prison. I believe it's going public now, not private.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been a believer in, regardless of whether you're on the inside or the outside, you're entitled to proper health care. And we know that doesn't happen in prisons. And I've been a huge advocate over the years, even before Canberra got our own so-called prison, that there was a remand centre. And I had a doctor and staff going into the remand centre providing services to the men in there back in 1998. And then we went to Goulburn for 10 years. Winnunga had a doctor and an Aboriginal male worker go to Goulburn jail for 10 years. And then the men that was in Goulburn, when they reopened Cooma jail, some of them got moved to Goulburn, and they wrote to New South Wales Corrections Health and asked if Winnunga could provide a service to them. So we went to Cooma jail on a Friday every month. But that's when we had a lot less men in prison back then. But, since we've got our own prison, a quarter of the prison population here in the ACT are Aboriginal. And back in 2015, we had a young man by the name of Stephen Freeman. He was severely assaulted within 2 hours of being taken from the watch house to the prison, and he was in intensive care for 6 days, and then they took him back to the prison, and then 12 months later he died from a methadone overdose. So there was a couple of reports, and particularly there was an inquiry into his assault in the prison, and that didn't happen until after he'd died in the prison. And one of the recommendations was for Winnunga to be integrated into the Justice Health here services in the AMC. That's the name of the Alexander McConaughey Centre. So after the coronial inquest, and I left that, I actually said to my senior doctor on the way out, our Executive Director of Clinical Services, there's no way that we're going to be integrated. We're going to stand alone because I'm not prepared to share the risk. So then I lobbied the minister at the time, the Corrections Minister, and was able to get him to agree for Winnunga to stand alone. So we're autonomous in the AMC. We're not part of Justice Health and we're not part of corrections, although we're running a service out of a corrections facility. But I must say it definitely has its challenges, and because, as we know, corrections are very punitive in the way that they treat our men and women in prisons, and we come from a place of compassion and no judgment. So it's challenging. We went in there in 2019. I have nurses in there and an Aboriginal support person. The nurses are in there from 6:30 in the morning until 8:30 at night. And then if somebody gets sick overnight, then they call a Winnunga doctor that's on call. So, and we have an Aboriginal support worker, cultural support worker that works with the nurses, and also the men and women who are incarcerated in AMC.
It sounds like there's just so much that's happening in the organisation and providing a service to people in prison. I'm wondering, we've got our May Day special. I'm going to be doing a show next Monday on slave labour and stolen wages of Aboriginal people. But after that, I was wondering if I'll ring Beth up and we can have another chat in a couple of weeks. Is that okay?
That'd be great. I'd love that. That would be fabulous, because I think we can't forget about our brothers and sisters that are incarcerated. You know, the majority of them, you know, with drug addiction, mental health, poverty, all of those things that are the drivers for our mob to be incarcerated.
It's crazy. It's and then Aboriginal people are dying in custody as well, not just in prisons but also in the hospitals. Absolutely, you know, and the whole system, you know, and we know that racism is alive and well in this country. And yes, it is.
For our mob, you know, it never gets any easier. We're always judged. We're looked down on. It's like we're not trusted, you know, so it doesn't matter whether you live in Canberra or where you live. You can live in a remote community. We're all, you know, that judgment's already made. Indeed.
Auntie Julie, we're going to be speaking pretty soon with Carolyn Jackson, who's the daughter of Uncle Ray Jackson, doing a memorial show for him at the moment.
Yeah.
So I'll call Beth and we'll arrange another interview. Are there any final comments you want to make?
I just want to say, you know, just have a big shout out to the men and women who are incarcerated, and, you know, like, hopefully, you know, governments and other Aboriginal community-controlled health services will do what Winnunga's doing, and, you know, there needs to be a big push to have Aboriginal community-controlled health services providing services in every prison in this country.
Yeah, because there's actually a service delivered in prison, isn't there?
Yeah, we do it in the jail. Yeah.
You go to the jail.
We're out there 6:30 in the morning until 8:30 at night with the nurses. I have the Aboriginal support worker with the nurses from 9 till 5 days a week. We have a forensic psychologist that goes out. I have my social and emotional wellbeing team that go out there. They're all Aboriginal staff. You know, they do justice reinvestment, road to recovery. It's like a drug and alcohol program. We do lots of other things, and but the thing is getting access to our clients out there too. You know, you can only, you know, you're only as good as what the officer on the day allows you to be. I was about to say, I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much, Auntie Julie, for coming onto the program. We'll be in touch very soon for an extended interview with you. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Marisa. Bye. Take care. Bye. Bye.
From Iran to the Americas, the Pacific to Palestine, and here in so-called Australia, people are standing up for freedom and liberation. This May Day at Melbourne State Library, join the Voice of Revolution Iran Melbourne, the Black People's Union, renegade activists, unionists, and people from all over the world as we stand together in understanding that we are all in this together. A lineup of speakers and music from around the world demanding justice and celebrating our common struggles and our common humanity will be announced on the event page soon. You can find the event by searching May Day for Freedom and Liberation on Facebook. May Day for Freedom and Liberation, 5:30 p.m, Monday 1st of May at State Library, Victoria. A 3CR Community Radio supporter.
And this is the Doin Time show, 3CR, and in a sec I'm going to be welcoming Carolyn Jackson to the program. You just heard an interview with Julie Tongs from Canberra, and she's a Wiradjuri woman and has been doing work with healthcare in prison. And this is a tribute to Uncle Ray Jackson, and we're going to be speaking now with Carolyn. Uncle Ray was a vocal and knowledgeable deaths in custody campaigner and long-time president of the Indigenous Social Justice Association, and he also received the French Human Rights Medal in Australia. Never even bothered to give him one, despite all the work he's done. Hi, Carolyn. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. How are you?
Thank you so much for taking the time, Carolyn. It's a very, very sad time of year, isn't it? When these days come around, I really start to miss him again.
Yeah, definitely. We missed him a lot. Yesterday was 8 years that he has passed. Yes, so we can't believe it's 8 years. It just feels like not that long ago that he had left us. But yeah, his memories, like we've got fond memories of him, and we're very proud of the man he was. And so we just hope that that he's been remembered, by those who remember him for what he is. And so I try not to get a bit emotional, but but we all miss him dearly. So yeah,
absolutely. Sorry, Carolyn, the reception is really off. You there?
Since then, and more grandchildren, and just wish he was here. Yeah, sorry, can you hear me now? I'm so
That's
sorry.
Better. Yep.
So he's greatly missed. Yeah, so we miss him a lot. Yeah, and his work, So we're very proud of him.
Oh, I mean, last year I actually did a 2-part series on the show, and we talked a lot about, how his work in the unions and asylum seekers and Aboriginal people as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, definitely. And, I don't know if he was out there aware that they finished the event.
You there, Carolyn?
Hello? So
yeah, I'm here.
That was fantastic that was completed by, of course, some good help. And, so he's achieved a lot. The thing is, achieved a lot as well. Yeah, so we just hope that, he lives in people's minds and their thoughts, and also to fight for justice that he is for families out there. So, so I still get, I still keep in contact with Carol Hickey, TJ's mum. So, we...
Oh, TJ Hickey.
We message each other now and then, through social media. So,
good.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people there that still that remember him and his work and to try and carry on his work. But there was only one Ray Jackson, right? So he's a lot.
Absolutely.
He's a lot of families out there that he did. Yeah, that he did fight for justice for. Yeah. So
that's fantastic, Caroline, that you were able to come on, and I know that Ray worked quite, extensively with Gail, didn't he?
Oh yes, he did. Definitely, he went to the coroner. He went to and for TJ, with TJ. Yeah, it's every month, 14th of February every year, Feb. So, and that's still to this day to try and I've been held accountable for that. So, anyway, but we keep in contact with some of the people that would say families. Yeah,
beautiful. Carolyn, thank you so much for coming onto the show. The reception wasn't that great, but It's not your fault.
Okay, hopefully, next year, hopefully I'll get a better reception.
Look, at least we did a memorial show. That's the main thing, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for thinking of that. And, hopefully we can catch up and we'll chat again soon.
I hope so, Carolyn.
No worries.
Okay.
Thank you, Marisa. Thank you.
You take care. I'm so glad you were able to make it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
3CR is about community, and we welcome your participation at the station.
3CR is open to a wide diversity of volunteers and is a great way to connect with Melbourne's activist community.
Have you ever thought about volunteering, doing a reception shift, getting a program on air,
training in radio skills, or contributing to one of the station's committees?
There are many ways to be involved at 3CR.
To find out more, go to 3cr.org.au and get in touch.
And you're back with the Doin Time show, and we're continuing with the special memorial broadcast for Uncle Ray Jackson. And next up on the show, we are going to be speaking with Joseph Pugliese, who's a long-time friend of Uncle Ray's and has also done a lot of work on Deathscapes website and is one of the contributors of a book, Mapping Deathscapes, Digital Geographies of Racial and Border Violence. And I believe he also edited that book. I'll check with him in a sec. Hello, Joseph. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Marisa. Good to be on your program.
It's lovely to have you. You were the editor of that book, weren't you?
I was with Sivendrina Pereira.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Now, Joseph is going to give a comprehensive introduction and historical context to Ray's life and work. And let's begin with his trauma as a child of the stolen generations. And how did that drive his burning desire to achieve social justice?
Yeah. Look, as you know, Uncle Ray Jackson was an extraordinarily strong man because he actually had to face the most traumatic of situations when he was dealing with the survivors and the families of Indigenous deaths in custody. And he actually had to also, and I can talk about this later, turn up to some of the autopsies to ensure that Indigenous protocols were observed. So you can imagine how difficult that would have been to be in that sort of situation. And Uncle Ray didn't have medical training, so it's not as though he was habituated to watching someone being carved up for those medical legal purposes. I mark that precisely because he could deal with all of that. He had that inner strength. But I'm not sure, because I know you had Caroline on just a few minutes ago, if she mentioned it. But the only time that I ever saw Uncle Ray crack was on the few occasions that he mentioned that he was of the stolen generation. And
Caroline
that he
hasn't mentioned that, no.
No, she didn't, yeah. And that he had never got a chance to be reunited with his Indigenous mother. And when he would bring that up, his tears would just come down, and it was a side of absolute trauma for him. And I think what's extraordinary about what Uncle Ray did with that trauma, he took that trauma and decided to turn it into an energy to try and achieve social justice for all those who've experienced various forms of state violence. And it encompassed, as we know, not only Indigenous people dying in custody, but he had an expansive heart, and he took under his umbrella, if you like, people who'd been marginalised by the state, maligned by the state, so refugees, asylum seekers, trans people, people who basically were victims of violence and injustice. So that's the extraordinary power of Uncle Ray, that he fought battles across multiple fronts to try and secure social justice.
Absolutely. And Joseph, thank you so much for talking about that background. And you were talking before about the complex legal cases and how he had a really good grasp of that. Interestingly, would you agree then that Ray had an incredible way of legislating family attendance for autopsies of Indigenous deaths in custody to ensure ceremony and respect.
Absolutely. Look, what was amazing about Uncle Ray was that he actually achieved, if you like, a legal breakthrough in the state, which then ramified across the nation. And what I'm talking about here is, prior to Uncle Ray's intervention, Indigenous people were not allowed, family members were not allowed to attend these medical legal autopsies that were required by the coronial process. And so there was this sense that they didn't know whether or not their loved ones, their dead loved ones, were being disrespected in the process. And so Uncle Ray actually worked with a non-Indigenous medical legal scholar. His name is Carl Hughes. He's still alive, and I'm still in contact with him. And he basically said to Carl Hughes, look, I know that you are in these forensic circles. Can we change the legislation so as to get Indigenous representatives within these autopsy situations so that their loved ones know that all due respect is being paid to their dead ones? And Carl said, look, I don't think we can pull this off because the legislation is sort of set in concrete. But what Uncle Ray did is he wrote a draft legislation, if you like, a policy, and began to send it out to all the appropriate authorities. And initially they pushed back, but because of his sheer determination, working with Carl Hughes, who knew the language, the legal language, and who also had the contacts, they managed finally to break through and to get that legislation so that Indigenous people and their families could attend or could send delegates like Uncle Ray. Often the family found it too harrowing to attend the autopsy process required by the coronial inquest, and they would send Uncle Ray to make sure that their loved ones were treated with the utmost respect. So that's an extraordinary achievement. It's a landmark achievement in terms of social justice in this country, and that's all due to Uncle Ray working with Carl Hughes.
Actually, I think I've had a couple of conversations with Carl Hughes. He's quite incredible.
He is. He was very tight with Uncle Ray, and often Uncle Ray would send him out on missions, so to speak, across the states, different states when their families would Indigenous families would contact him, say from WA or the Northern Territory, and they knew. I mean, this was Uncle Ray's stature and fame. He was known nationally within Indigenous communities because of his social justice work and the reliability that he would be there for them, but often because he was attending multiple coronial inquests at the same time. You know, he couldn't cover all the bases. He would send Carl, and Carl would be delegated to deal with what was happening in those sorts of situations, in remote communities in particular. And often he experienced a lot of harassment from the police from the moment he would land on the airstrip in these remote communities, because they saw him as someone who was basically out there to spy and to try and dig up the dirt, because often there was a lot of police violence dirt that had caused that Indigenous death. And so Ray was Carl was an incredibly brave person too, and he was canny. He knew how to get through and, if you like, get through the police dragnet that was often set up so as to sort of thwart his contact with the family. And I mean, if you speak to him, he'll tell you stories where often he would arrive pretending to be an American tourist, dressed with a Hawaiian T-shirt and shorts and a camera, so that he didn't look like a forensic pathologist.
Wow. I mean, that's just so awesome. Like, we need more people like this.
We do. We need people working in solidarity across all those fronts so that we can begin to create really positive social change. And I think that's what was extraordinary about Uncle Ray, that, if I can put it this way, it might sound like an old-fashioned term, but it was one that was close to his heart. He saw himself as an internationalist. Yep. He came from a solid socialist background. He broke his teeth, if you like, in the trade union movement. working on the waterfront, working in the trade union sector. And really, that's where he learned a lot of the techniques and skills that he later transposed to his Indigenous deaths in custody battles. But he thought, because he was coming from that solid socialist background, he had a sense that we can't just work in isolation, that we have to see the larger global picture. And as you know, he worked and was interested in what was happening in the US, in the settler colony of the US, settler colony of Canada, the settler colony of Israel in Palestine. And he had his finger on the pulse in terms of other nations, other Indigenous people who were also fighting similar battles.
Yeah, look, it's really great that he was able to connect all that up. And in fact, I was actually reading a couple of Uncle Ray's old emails from a really old computer that I've got. And he had there was a phone number at the end. You know, his phone number of the flat that he used to live in?
Yes.
I picked up the phone to dial it. I felt like such an idiot. I actually dialed his number.
Oh, right.
I don't know why. I just got this, I don't know what happened to me, and then I hung up, and I thought, what have I done? I went to dial his number.
Yeah. I guess there's the sense of disbelief that he's gone because he was a larger-than-life figure.
I know.
And it's interesting you talk about his flat because the magnitude of the man, you would think that he had a fully furnished office with computers and admin assistants, considering the scale of the work that he was doing, the multiple deaths in custody that he was pursuing. All he had was a one-bedroom flat in those Waterloo Towers. You couldn't move in there, basically, because of all the files that he kept. He had one computer, and basically he worked around the clock across all of those different cases with some friends and support. But basically he did all of the work. And what was extraordinary about Uncle Ray is that he could retain all of that information and bring it out in a legal context, explain to the family in simple English the complex legal language that he was having to process in order to try and advance their case. So it was quite extraordinary to see him in his little flat, because you would have thought, he had some great office with all of these assistants, considering the volume of work that he did.
I know. Look, I actually think I've got an old interview of his, It's on one of my devices. I'm going to see if I can reproduce it and put it on air sometime.
That would be wonderful. It would be so good to hear his voice because we miss him so much.
Oh, you're making it come alive, Joseph. It's
well, look, there was a warmth to Uncle Ray. He was solid. He was a man of few words, but the words he gave you were gold, basically, because they were from the heart.
Yeah, they were indeed. And he was actually a regular part of our show. I mean, there was a time when he used to actually come onto the show once a week via phone.
Yeah, how wonderful to know that.
It was, and in fact, today was kind of a bit symbolic, Joseph. Prior to our interview together, I had an interview about the death in custody of Veronica Nelson. It was our first interview. And we had technical difficulties and the phones weren't working. And then I thought, well, this is symbolic because, Uncle Ray was working tirelessly and there were all these barriers, and there were barriers today.
That's interesting. And the amazing thing about Uncle Ray is that he had so many barriers thrown at him. And in particular, I mean, we have to mark this, there was police harassment and police trying to thwart his investigations because often it was the police who had been complicit in the killing of Indigenous people in custody. No surprises there. But he would stand his ground. And they also knew that they couldn't quite touch him, even though they tried to block and undermine him, because of the enormous integrity and respect that he carried.
Indeed, and TJ Hickey is a primary example of how the police tried to say that his death was an accident.
Exactly. And that is such a familiar refrain. It's either an accident or they cannot recall the incident at the time. And, as you know, I've sat through quite a few Indigenous deaths in custody coronial inquests, and I just feel such a sense of rage when I hear that, where either it's slated to be an accident, when we well know that there are so many determined factors that lead to the killing of Indigenous people in custody, and it's a combination of racism and colonialism and white supremacy, effectively. The other thing that incenses me is when the litigants are trying to ascertain exactly what's going on, and they'll repeatedly say, I cannot recall. And you can just see the bald-faced lies. I mean, Uncle Ray used to talk about that and how he had to control his own emotions in those courtroom settings when he was bearing witness for families during the coronial inquest, because he could see the lies and the duplicities that were being performed in those legal settings.
Yeah, look, it's we could go on all night, Joseph. It's incredible.
We could. Yeah, look, he is an extraordinary figure, and I'm actually so happy that you mark his anniversary every April at this time, because he has left such a gap in our lives. There's such a sense of absence. But I also have to say that he's a figure that we draw strength from because of his own extraordinary drive to achieve social justice across so many fronts. I look to him as someone who inspires me to this day.
I still do it now.
Absolutely. And I know many other people who do exactly the same. They draw on him as a source of strength because of the exemplary way in which he led social justice battles. So, just finally,
he won a couple of awards, Uncle Ray did, didn't he?
He did. But, what's pretty appalling, and we have to put this on the record, is that, I talked about him running his social justice campaigns from that one-bedroom flat up in Waterloo Towers. There were no state resources ever given him to enable him to do that work. Put that to the side. Because of his extraordinary achievements, and he was instrumental in with many other Indigenous figures, but he was at the forefront in getting the Royal Commission into Indigenous Deaths in custody up. I mean, if you counted nothing else, that's a milestone achievement, let alone then founding with Don Clark the Indigenous Social Justice Association, which was such a transformative association statewide and nationally. If nothing else, you would have thought that there would have been state recognition of that, if not national recognition of that achievement. No one in Australia, in terms of authorities or people in power, ever acknowledged that, let alone gave him some award to recognise his achievements. But fortunately, I was in a position to be able to recommend that he be nominated for the French Human Rights Medal, which is an incredibly prestigious medal that's been awarded to people like Nelson Mandela. And we wrote a case, and I think I've said this to you. When I nominated him, and the French consulate contacted him saying that this nomination was going through, he rang me and he was utter disbelief, and he says, "Is this a joke?" And I said, "No, it's real." But the upshot is that French government gave him this prestigious international award, and they got about 20,000 euros to use their social justice campaigns in ISJO, the Indigenous Social Justice Association. And he also got the Human Rights Medal. And Don Clark, he sent Don Clark over to Paris at the Elysee Palace, the presidential house, where Don Clark picked up the medal on behalf of himself and Uncle Ray. But this is the measure of the man. When he found out that he got this award, he rang me to say so, and he said, "This award means so much to me because I've got one more hammer to break down those doors."
Absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, isn't Deathscapes also, like Uncle Ray, do you have some input into Deathscapes, the website? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, no. Look, not only was Deathscapes inspired by Uncle Ray's extraordinary social justice work into Indigenous deaths in custody and asylum seeker deaths in custody, because he was over that too. As you know, he would often take Aboriginal passports into the detention centres, smuggle them in, because they weren't allowed to be passed through, but he would smuggle them in and offer welcome to country on behalf of his Indigenous nation to people who were in prison there. And so, that's how we really connected, because I worked with him on the Aboriginal passports. And Sivendrinian and I, and Pereira was also part of the cooperative. And we basically were inspired to put the Deathscape site together because of that work. And Uncle Ray was really excited because he could see that we were going to do a transnational project where we were mapping deaths in custody, both in 3 settler states, Australia, the US and Canada. And so he was right on board. Unfortunately, and this is heartbreaking, he died before the site came to fruition, but his spirit imbues the whole project.
It did indeed. Can you just tell listeners the name of that website and how they can find it?
Yeah, it's deathscapes.org, and it's now available. It's been archived by the National Library of Australia. So just go to the National Library of Australia electronic catalogue, enter Deathscape, and it will bring up the site.
Now, that website is also a standalone website as well?
No longer, no. We actually ran out of funding. Yeah,
really?
We've run out of funding. We couldn't afford to keep it running. But fortunately, the National Library of Australia recognised it as what they called a site of national significance, which is really wonderful to hear. And so it's available with all of the case studies that we've got there, the Mr. Do case study, the Mr. Ward case study, etc. It's all available in the archive, the electronic archive of the National Library of Australia.
I actually use that website sometimes as a reference to do research for my radio show, and I'm going to have to check to see if that is accessible for blind and vision impaired people. I'll have to speak to you off air about that.
Sure. And if it's not, be sure to contact the NLA, the National Library of Australia, because that would be a really important intervention to make.
Absolutely. It's approximately 4:52 and you're listening to an interview with Joseph Pugliese, who is speaking about Uncle Ray Jackson and paying tribute on this very special memorial program. Joseph, thank you so much for coming onto the program. Do you have any final comments you want to make?
Look, just that we continue the work. I mean, if Uncle Ray wanted anything, it's for that work that he started off to continue across multiple fronts, so that we actually achieve social justice change exactly where it's needed. And we all know just how pressing and urgent that is across all those sites that we've mentioned, all those settler colonial sites nationally and transnationally. So I think when we memorialise Uncle Ray, I think the best tribute that we can make is to actually keep alive his work, try and fulfil in our own humble ways the mission that he set out to achieve social justice across all of those different fronts.
Absolutely. And, once again, we have done another memorial program for Uncle Ray, and we're going to be paying tribute to him as long as I'm alive.
That's wonderful to hear, and I'm sure he's smiling wherever he is when he hears that.
I'm sure he is. Joseph, you take care of yourself, and we'll speak soon.
Lovely. Thank you for having me on air, Marisa, and all power to Uncle Ray, I say.
I agree. Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
All the best. Bye then.
Bye-bye.
3CR Community Radio, giving voice to the community since 1976.
3CR needs members to survive. By becoming a subscriber, you're helping us to remain fiercely independent and free of commercials and corporate influence.
Are you a paid-up subscriber? It's just $40 concession, $80 waged, $150 for a band or organisation, and $300 solidarity.
Great value for 24/7 community-owned and community-controlled media. Please become a subscriber member today.
Call the station on 03 9419 8377 or sign up online at 3cr.org.au/subscribe.
And we're nearing the end of another show, and thank you to all our guests today. Thank you to Auntie Julie and to Carolyn Jackson and also to Joseph Pugliese. It's approximately 4:55, and stay tuned every Monday from 4 to 5 for the Doin Time show. And next Monday is the 1st of May, which is May Day. And tune into 3CR and listen to all the wonderful May Day commentaries and broadcasts that are coming up. And the Doin Time show will be airing at 4 to 5, looking at, well, it's actually going to be a May Day special next Monday, rather than the Doin Time show, and looking at stolen wages and slave labour. So tune in, and it's goodbye from Marisa. We're going to be going out with our theme song, Black Fella, White Fella by the Rumpy Band, and it's goodbye. Okay, thanks. Bye.
You've been listening to a 3CR podcast, produced in the studios of independent community radio station 3CR in Melbourne, Australia. For more information, go to allthews.3cr.org.au.
Black fella, white fella, it doesn't matter what you colour, as long as you a true fella, as long as you a real fella. All the people of different races with different lives in different places, it doesn't matter. Are you the one who's gonna stand up and be counted? Are you the one who's gonna be there when we're shouting? Are you the one who's always ready with a helping hand? Are you the one who understands this family plan? Black fella, white fella, yellow fella, any fella, it doesn't matter what you colour, as long as you a true fella. All the people of different races with different lives in different places, it doesn't matter which religions, it's all the same where the ship is sinking. We need more brothers if we're to make it. We need more sisters if we're to save it. Are you the one who's gonna stand up and be counted? Are you the one who's gonna be there when we shout it? Are you the one who's always ready with a helping hand? Are you the one who understands this family plan? one who's always ready with the help.